we acquired the company in late 2023. We've been at it in some form or another for 12 years in the logistics industry. And we spotted an opportunity to help small brands ship like the major brands that we work with, like Disney, GNC, Clorox. That's some of the big brands we work with. And we thought, why can't we take this to the masses? This industry is notorious for feeing people and taking extra dollar here or there. And we know that brands need that back to be able to market and do the things they need to do. The connection between the software to the people. And the thing that almost excited us and pushed us to move forward with what we're doing is you could tell that the human element that these Ship Blank or Shopify or whoever, they really weren't thinking about the people on the floor the way that they should. They think kind of like, well, it's in a software, that's what happens in real life, right? And that is not the case at all. It's cool to help the non-billion-dollar companies, which is most of us, right? Ship like a major brand and be able to go to retail, be able to go through e-commerce, to be able to even go through social media, Amazon, and even we have some people shipping to like schools and gyms and different things. Yeah, we're really excited and proud of what we're doing. And I love the direction of where our company's headed, working with the smaller brands.
Welcome to the Afluencer podcast. We're talking logistics and shipping today, especially with solutions with respect to small business. I know this is kind of a constant pain in terms of launching an e-commerce store. We've got it up. We've got the product going. We kind of step in on the marketing side. And if you get everything clicking, now we've got to fulfill the actual orders. And I know this is a pain because I order several products from our customers. And when it comes with the self-hand addressed and they see my order and they ship it to me, I mean, it's always nice, but then I'm fearful for them in terms of what this looks like from a scaling process. So we've got Paul Jarrett with us today. Paul is the co-owner of Bulu, and the goal and where Bulu helps customers is to do that, to help you act bigger in terms of shipping and logistics. So we're going to pick his brain on that end. So Paul, welcome.
Thanks for having me on, Brett. Can't wait to talk shop here.
Yeah, this would be great. Yeah, we'll get to your origin story in a moment, Paul. I know you got a really interesting background, but I wanted to jump right into it from a logistics standpoint. So where's Bulu at today in terms of how you're helping out your customers?
Yeah, so we actually we acquired the company in late 2023. We've been at it in some form or another for 12 years in the logistics industry. And we spotted an opportunity to help small brands ship like the major brands that we work with, like Disney, GNC, Clorox. That's some of the big brands we work with. And we thought, why can't we take this to the masses? So this year we've grown our, our smaller client base from 8 to about 65 clients, kind of doing shipping a different way. And it's exciting. It's cool to help these smaller brands, and by smaller I mean non-billion-dollar companies, right?
Right.
It's cool to help the non-billion-dollar companies, which is most of us, right? Ship like a major brand and be able to go to retail, be able to go through e-commerce, to be able to even go through social media, Amazon, and even we have some people shipping to like schools and gyms and different things. And yeah, it all boils down to just the technology that you're using and honestly working in sync with your clients and making sure I would say that over 12 years, the one thing that has always bothered us, whether we had our own consumer packaged good product or we worked with somebody else, it was just this industry is notorious for feeing people and taking extra dollar here or there. And we know that brands need that back to be able to market and do the things they need to do. So yeah, we're really excited and proud of what we're doing. And I love the direction of where our company's headed, working with the smaller brands.
Very cool. Did you have a decision to make in terms of, I assume for the last 11, 12 years, you may have been thinking about building something similar to this yourself. Did you have that buy versus build kind of decision? Like, hey, should we go into this area or should we be shoppers in terms of potential acquisition? What did that thought process look like?
Yeah, so well, when we started, what was interesting is we were one of the very first subscription boxes. So we were one of the 6 ones. In that process, we actually built and sold a software which became the back end of a software called rangeme.com. It's a platform where buyers and sellers connect. So we've done a little bit of all of it. And, really going into the pandemic, it was a rough time for us because big brands just kind of, they just kind of hold the paychecks and see what's going to happen. And I kind of joke, but I'm serious with my co-founder, who I happen to be married to, Stephanie, of, we probably should have just started from scratch, right? But we just had all these assets and we had warehouses and an amazing team lined up. And so, it felt like a risk for maybe about 2 or 3 months to acquire our company from venture capitalists, because by that time we had a small percentage, and it's one of those things where the tail was wagging the dog situation,
Mhm.
right? And they were probably, I'm assuming and it felt like they weren't really excited to work with those smaller brands. So yeah, we took a risk. We bought the company. It was a really great deal. I would say favored the entrepreneurs a little bit more. But I would say that it boils down to just there was a lot of value in the name. There's a lot of value in our Rolodex. And I would say a little bit of that PTSD of like knowing what it's like to start from scratch, right? I'm like, oh man, I don't know if we want to go through that. So once we got the deal and the terms correct, it was just that thing where we had about 3 months of going over our strategy, kind of resetting, reestablishing ourselves, but it's been off to the races. So what I think what most entrepreneurs would consider low risk, we felt like is a little risk, probably because we had just became comfortable over 12 years of, kind of knowing how things operated. But now it's interesting because for the first time after 12 years, there's, nobody backing us. There's no venture capitalists. There's no law firms. There's nobody. So some things we're super experienced at, but then it's kind of interesting where, we're having to get like our first line of credit or something like that, as like a brand new company. So I always get a kick out of that where, we have to go to some, banks or whoever it is, lawyers, and go like, we actually don't know how to do this thing because it was done for us for 12 years. So it's a fun time.
Yeah, it's funny how that works with you think you know everything. And I went through that also starting Afluencer.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is old hat, started a couple of these before. And then you get in and also times change and you feel like, wow,
Yes.
I did this 7 years ago. And now I'm like a dinosaur because things are just done differently now in
Yeah.
terms of whether it's marketing or finding a line of credit or how that all works. So that's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Totally.
Well, we were talking kind of before we came on air, my memory of the logistics space, and this is from my last software company, and that was in the Shopify e-commerce realm, right? And if you're going to know the date better than I, but if memory serves correct, it was around, I think it was pre-pandemic, 2018, 2019.
Right.
Maybe it was 2018 even. There was big buzz around Shopify and their move to compete with Amazon. And of course,
Yeah.
Amazon's got that inside track because they can ship stuff to you, right? And they get it there next day or that afternoon. And Shopify's big move was going to be their, I believe what they called their fulfillment network. And they were going to just
Yeah.
go after it and warehouses. And if you were a small brand, you could tap into the Shopify fulfillment network and it was going to be big. And this is back when they did Shopify Unite in person. And that was like the theme of the show. And I remember a big build up to it. And then they launched
Yeah.
and not a lot happened. So you
Yeah.
must have had a front row seat for that. What was
Oh,
that
yeah.
like in terms of hearing the announcement and maybe seeing your proverbial corporate life flash before your eyes and then
Yeah. Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
that
Totally.
kind of play out? What was that like?
Yeah. Well, what was interesting is right about that time, just pre-pandemic, and even it felt like when the pandemic hit, everything in logistics just got thrown into full throttle, right? And boy, there was just like we fought so many urges to do certain things, but right about that time, we were focused almost exclusively on working with these billion-dollar brands, and we were doing the most complicated shipping and logistics for Disney, for GNC. I mean, these were the things that internally it didn't make sense for them to handle, or they couldn't figure it out. Like Disney, for example, how to sell subscriptions in theme parks. It took us a while to figure that out for them. But we were actually getting calls from, I think since I'm under a different company and, who cares, but we were actually getting phone calls from these companies, right? The ship fill in the blank, the Shopify's, all these people were calling us and they're kind of picking our brains, trying to figure out like what we were doing, how we were doing it different. And at that also same time, we were thinking about going the route of servicing some smaller brands. So it was like everybody kind of, and that seems to happen a lot in kind of the like startup world or the tech world, like everybody generally has the same idea at the same time. And I remember feeling like, oh no, they're going to beat us to the punch. They're going to knock us out of the market. This is a total bad strategy that we're going to. But I think that over the years, I've learned that it's a lot of market validation is what it actually provided. And after talking to some people, I feel like it was a lot of like brain drain back and forth, right? Like the blind leading the blind, really understanding that we had a deep, deep, deep understanding of, we had worked with 2 or 3 3PLs and we had to acquire one. That's how we got what's behind us in order to keep up with our fulfillment. And really the thing that the other places were missing and why we're in our warehouse, that is a real background behind me of our one of our warehouses here, is the connection between the software to the people. And the thing that almost excited us and pushed us to move forward with what we're doing is you could tell that the human element that these Ship Blank or Shopify or whoever, they really weren't thinking about the people on the floor the way that they should. They think kind of like, well, it's in a software, that's what happens in real life, right? And that is not the case at all. I mean, you really need to have the ability to utilize software and to either be able to train it or to start on the floor first and to make sure that you can do something and then find the software. So I think that if you looked at our data, some of our best clients ever are the former Shopify fulfillment users, the Ship Bob, whoever it is, right? And they've experienced that, using the software and having maybe something with a twist or something that they wanted to do different with fulfillment. And either the software doesn't allow it or the end product of shipping is inaccurate. And so, yeah, it was one of those things where terrifying in the moment, but you got to stop, you got to breathe, you got to think to yourself, okay, they've actually done the research, so we're on the right path. Now, can we carve out enough of this market to sustain and be, to grow and to be profitable? And it's worked out well for us. But yeah, there's definitely a few scary moments in there for sure.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I think a lot of small businesses, startups, they go through that. Ironically, as I was telling you, our top quote unquote competitor is an app called Shopify Collabs, which is free. And I went through your moment. It was 19 or 20 when Shopify bought one of our competitors, and they were not much at the time, but then that turns them into something, right? It's like, oh man, Shopify is purchasing them and they're going to brand it and they're going to make it free. How do you compete? To your point, they do a lot of the market validation. They get a lot of energy around it. And then as a big company, you kind of wait for them to not quite deliver perfectly on the product, right? And then it opens up the door, and it's kind of ideal from that standpoint, right?
Absolutely, 100%. I think people don't recognize that enough of, we've sold software to a large corporate entity before, and there is friction there, and there's a different train of thought, and so many times it's the part where the entrepreneur puts up their feet, they're like, okay, I sold it, I made it. And, there seems to be a big gap of time of, you got a free 6 months to go pursue and to kind of knock their legs out from them while they're, all just adjusting. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, you've seen that before, right? Is that transition.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw that with our last company who we sold to, it was a private firm, but they take it over and they almost don't know what they have, right? Like the numbers look good to them, but they didn't know what is behind the numbers and sort of what makes it all flow from a soul standpoint, I guess, if you will.
Yep.
Where are you guys at in terms of customer size today? Like, who's an ideal potential client for Bulu Group? We've mentioned quote unquote small medium business, sub-billion, but where's the floor in terms of a good potential client for you guys?
Yeah. Well, we would have, I know my team, they would look at the data and they would say, national brands that have a retail and e-commerce presence, Amazon, social media, that are shipping in the neighborhood of, 5,000 to 15,000. But the reality is, when you look at what most 3PLs or fulfillment companies want, it's like the most difficult, and there's not that many. It's a lot of rare birds, right? We can do big stuff. We can do RFPs. I mean, we can do stuff that ships 2 million a year. It's okay. It's cool. It's money, but it's a lot of having a lot of eggs in one basket. And I'll tell you what, the people that I probably love the most, or the companies that I always push for, and I catch a lot of flack for this, is I love the folks that are doing, like even like 50 to like 2,500 a month, because so many times, and I think we've just been doing this for so long, I'm constantly in our CRM looking at stuff. And you go, oh my gosh, that's Hulk Hogan. He's what, how are we not looking at this? And well, they're not shipping anything. And you're like, yeah, but it's Hulk Hogan and he's releasing a beer. Like, let's double check that.
Yeah, yeah, very
Um,
cool.
and or you see these products. I'm trying to, I'm drawing a blank on some of them, but we do a lot of like vitamin supplement, health, beauty, a lot of foods, but
Mhm.
um, you see these products where the reason that they're actually not shipping the amount they should is they're doing it themselves, their fulfillment themselves, or they've had a bad experience, or frankly, they're getting price gouged and they're not getting enough money back to do the marketing. So there's nothing better to me than finding that needle in a haystack. We had a company that approached us called Joyride Candy, and we didn't put together that is actually a YouTuber with like 15 million views. And everything in the data, everything in the CRM was like, it's a bad idea. But just the fact that, I stopped and I was looking at it, I was like, ooh, Candy, that's cool. What is this thing? And I went, oh, wow. They need a little guidance on the fulfillment. But if we can get this YouTuber to just say a few things more, his name's Ryan Trahan, and that's become like a huge client. And I think most people, most companies, most fulfillment companies would have, not taken that on. And if they had, there was a few things to fix and a little bit of guidance that was needed. But those are always my favorite. Is somebody has something cool. I have a call today with somebody that has a art box kit, and I already know that they're probably getting price gouged. We're really good at like a lot of kitting and putting together complicated things. And I already know that I get a sense that they're getting price gouged, and to be able to give them a couple bucks back per shipment and see what they can do with that. Those are the clients that I love. So yeah, 5,000 to 15,000 a month is what we want. But I think the ones that make it most enjoyable, especially since we own our company now, I love finding those needle in a haystack where you can really like unlock their growth. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a very cool concept there, almost like a virtuous cycle that you unleash with you save them a couple bucks per shipment, and then you can invest that
Yeah.
into marketing and growing
And
the
And
company.
one of the big things that we unlock, which shocks people, is the ability. We get a lot of people that are doing e-commerce and they're having some sales and whatever. But what our software stack allows is for them to pick up the phone, call any retailer they want, and sell any amount possible. So most people, they have to go pick up a phone, sell to retailers, and they have to do pallets or something like that, right? For us, it's the way we've set up our system is they can call mom and pops retailers and say, hey, just buy like 2 or 3 bottles or 2 or 3 of whatever. You don't have to buy a case, you don't have to buy a pallet. And that is the big difference in what we're doing. And we haven't really seen anybody else doing that. And that's something that we learned from the major brands is the major brands decide, where they want to be and how many they want to ship. And we just kind of thought like, why don't we do that same thing? We can do that software. So watching those smaller brands just hammer the phones and get onto retail shelves. And we got one company that for the past year, they've been averaging getting on 2.5 retail shelves per week. And their biggest order is like 6 or 7 bottles, but it's a cool strategy that's working.
Yeah, that is great. Well, I can't get you out of here, Paul, without talking about your origin story.
Yeah.
But born in Nebraska, Taylor Park, New York, football field, New York to San Francisco. Take us through
Yeah.
that before we let you go.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where I never thought it was interesting until I got a little bit older, but born and raised in a trailer park in Nebraska, right? And just one of those things where didn't have much, didn't know we were broke, but
Mhm.
it was always one of those things where we had to work for what we wanted. And one of the very first kind of hustles I remember was there was a flea market next to our trailer park. And I'd go there and I'd buy Ninja Stars, I'd buy, stuff kids wanted, and I'd go back to my Catholic school that I went to, and I'd sell, these boxing nuns or ninja stars or switchblades or whatever. And I thought, oh man, that's a lot easier than mowing yards, right?
Right.
And then I would say, like, really, our parents raised us, they're entrepreneurs, and our parents just raised us like nothing's going to be handed to you. And if I wanted to go to college, I mean, I pretty much had to get a scholarship. So did that, worked my butt off, played at Iowa State, played football there. It was a great time. And then I just kind of got sick of sports and thought, okay, what are all the people in the skyboxes doing, right? And everybody was kind of in big brands or working in marketing or whatever. So went to New York, door to door to advertising agencies, begged, lied, cheated, steal to get any sort of internship. Got super lucky, got an internship with Nike. I think they're just looking for a big guy that can move boxes, right? But once I kind of got my foot in the door, and I would say at the highest level in New York City, and really sat in those meetings and was like, there's not a real big difference between these New York City meetings and the small local stuff in Lincoln, Nebraska, the firepower, the brain power. It's all about problem solving and really just coming to light of these New York City executives are just problem solving the same way that, that my dad was in the trailer park. There's really no difference. I would say that really knocked down the facade and worked in ad agencies, thought that's what we're going to do. But my wife and I really understood sampling and the power of getting samples out. So we kind of saw what Birchbox was doing. I don't know if anybody ever remembers them.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, we saw them and I went, oh my gosh, vitamins and supplements is a fast follower to Birchbox. Let's make a sample box. And I would say now doing logistics, what we're doing ultimately is the problem that we had 12 years ago was it's a complicated product with this Bulu box, which was a subscription box of 4 to 5 vitamin supplement samples. And we sold through Shopify, but we couldn't get it onto retail shelves because we didn't understand that world. We struggled selling it through social media channels. And then, really the big brands came to us because we were slowly figuring that out. And those big brands funded us to figure out logistics for a solid, still to this day, but I'd say 8 to 10 years of, having a blank check to figure it out. And but it's kind of wild where you always hear about people are like solving the first problem they had, but it took us 12 years to really understand the first problem we ever had is we couldn't sell where and how much we wanted anywhere that we wanted with our subscription box. Now we can do that, but now let's do that for other companies. And they don't have to be a subscription box. It can be a consumer packaged good. And they just tell us where they want to sell and what amount it is. And let's get them a nice dashboard where they can manage all of that. And it's been really cool seeing that strategy just grow from 8 to 60, 70 clients, whatever we're at, and just kind of lights out with that strategy. So it's been a fun 2024.
Yeah, that's great. It is interesting. You keep chasing down that original problem, right? And you find this,
Absolutely.
and then this is bigger, and oh wow, this scales more. This applies to more types of companies. And then I'm laughing because the irony, and I'm the same boat. 20s, in my 20s, you kind of chase the fortune and glory. Hey, I'm going to do my own startup because I want to be in the exec boxes. The irony is, most entrepreneurs don't end up in the exec boxes, but we end up having that's for the big brand execs, but we end up smiling, talking about our day to day and having more fun.
Now I just I'll just send people there. You're like, right. I don't even want to go. I'll just send somebody there.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks so much, Paul. This has been great. How can people find you and follow you online on social media? And Bulu as well.
We got bulugroup.com. We have pauljarrett.com. But I'd say thank you if you made it this far. And if you're interested in talking shop or whatever, it's just paul@bulugroup.com. That's my email. Just drop me an email and throw a little emoji in there. So I know you heard me on a podcast and love to catch up.
That's great. Yeah, hit up Paul with an emoji. Paul Jarrett, co-owner, co-founder of Bulu Group. Paul, thanks so much.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.